Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive. You
Mhm.
sent us some videos this week all about the markets, and well, things are getting kind of crazy,
Yeah.
especially with Bitcoin hitting that $100,000 mark. It's like, whoa! So we're going to be diving into inflation, interest rates, oh, and some super interesting tech trends too. You're in the right spot if you want to figure out what it all means.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What's really fascinating to me is how connected everything is. You got economic data influencing the Fed, central banks making these big moves, and then you've got tech giants racing towards AI and Bitcoin. Bitcoin's right there in the thick of it all. It's a wild landscape right now.
Okay, so let's break it all down. Let's start with the topic on everyone's mind, inflation. The US just released its November CPI numbers, and surprisingly, things aren't looking too bad.
Yeah, you're right. There was a small increase, but nothing to really freak out about. The annual rate sitting at 2.7%. And even core CPI, which, takes out those jumpy food and energy prices, stayed pretty steady at 3.3%. This is key because the Fed, they really pay attention to this data when they're making decisions about interest rates. Whether to raise them, lower them.
So does this mean we're probably looking at another rate cut in December? Some people are even predicting a Santa rally, a nice little boost in the stock market.
Well, the CME futures, which basically try to predict what the market will do, are showing a 97% chance of a cut in December. So yeah, it seems very likely, but we can't forget that inflation is still a bit higher than that 2% goal the Fed wants. And housing costs, well, they played a big part in that recent CPI jump.
True. But the videos did say that housing inflation seems to be slowing down a bit. Maybe that'll give the Fed some room to breathe. So what does all this mean for someone trying to understand how this might affect their investments? You know, like everyday people.
That's a great question. Here's the main thing. If the Fed keeps cutting rates, we could see a short-term boost in the stock market. However, we got to be careful and watch for any signs of the economy weakening, like maybe a drop in jobs. That kind of data tells us a lot about how healthy things really are.
Okay, got it. So a bit of a balancing act, right? Potential for things to go up, but also some warning signs to watch out for. Now let's shift gears and talk about Canada. They just made a pretty big move by cutting their interest rates, right?
Big time. They slashed rates by a whole 0.5%, and that's their fifth cut this year. It's a pretty different strategy compared to the U.S., which is interesting.
Why are they going so bold? It seems like they're really focused on boosting their economy.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Their inflation's actually pretty well under control,
Mm.
right around that 2% target. And this gives them the freedom to, really focus on stimulating their economy and dealing with those rising unemployment numbers. They're being proactive about it.
Now, this raises a question for our listeners. How do these Canadian rate cuts affect someone investing in the U.S.? Is there a connection?
Here's where it gets interesting. These cuts might weaken the Canadian dollar, which could make U.S. investments look more attractive in comparison. But we also got to think about those potential trade tensions between the two countries. Tariffs and those disagreements, they could create some unexpected bumps in the road for investors.
All right, so we've got the Fed potentially giving the market a boost, Canada shaking things up with rate cuts, and now let's talk Tesla. Their stock is going through the roof, breaking records like crazy. It's giving me major 2019 vibes.
It is quite a show, isn't it? The stock has pretty much doubled in value in just a few months, and there are definitely similarities to what happened in 2019. Back then, it was all about Tesla, pushing electric vehicles into the mainstream, becoming a household name.
So what's fueling this crazy rally this time? What's driving this surge?
Well, it's a few things coming together. First, their sales in China are booming. They just had a record-breaking week at the beginning of December. Then you've got their profits exceeding expectations, which makes investors feel better about, demand and if Tesla can actually make money. And then, of course, there's the big one.
Autonomous driving. Tesla's really leading the pack on that, and investors are definitely excited.
It's a potential game changer, no doubt. Just like they brought electric vehicles to the everyday person back in 2019, Tesla seems ready to do the same with self-driving cars. And this brings us to something really important, AI.
Exactly. They're not just a car company anymore, right? They're a major player in the AI world.
Precisely. Tesla's becoming a full-blown AI powerhouse. Think beyond self-driving cars.
Yep.
Robotics, AI-driven services, all sorts of things. It's a wide-open field with endless possibilities.
And while we're on the topic of AI, we can't forget about what Apple's been up to. They're usually pretty secretive, but they're definitely making some waves in the AI space.
Yeah, what's really got my attention is their development of a dedicated AI server chip. They're calling it Boltra for now. They're aiming to launch it around 2026, and this move is a pretty big deal.
Why is this chip so important? What does it tell us about Apple's strategy?
It shows that Apple's serious about controlling its own AI destiny, just like they did with their Mac chips. They're moving away from relying on NVIDIA. It's all about vertical integration, controlling the entire process, from design to manufacturing,
Hmm.
owning the technology and keeping costs down.
Oh, and we can't forget about Siri. Remember when it was kind of a joke? Well, they just gave it a big upgrade with ChatGPT technology. This could be huge for them.
Absolutely. A smarter, more capable Siri could mean a lot more people upgrading their iPhones, which means more money for Apple. It could have a ripple effect across all their products.
But even with all this talk about an AI race, the videos did mention that Apple seems to be playing catch-up. Can their slower, more deliberate approach really work in this fast-paced world?
That's the big question. The AI world changes so quickly. It'll be interesting to see if Apple's careful strategy can keep them on top in the long run. It's a real challenge.
All right, let's get back to Bitcoin. The whole hitting $100,000 thing, it's a big deal. But the videos you sent, they seem to be saying it's more than just the price pumping up.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about the price going up. We're seeing signs that people are actually using Bitcoin, like for real. Stable coins, those cryptocurrencies pegged to like the US dollar, they're exploding right now. And those big institutional investors, they're pouring money into Bitcoin ETFs. Those are those exchange-traded funds that track Bitcoin's price. It's a sign that Bitcoin's becoming more mainstream, less fringe.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like Bitcoin has a lot of momentum right now. But what about all that leverage in the system? Couldn't that cause some crazy price swings even if things are looking good?
That's the thing about leverage. You can make both your wins and your losses bigger. It's a double-edged sword. So yeah, we could see some pretty big price moves, even if the overall trends are positive. Got to remember, the crypto market is still young and things can get a bit wild.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. Both those videos kept talking about this programmable Bitcoin. Sounds futuristic.
It is a really exciting development. Think of it like this. You can build applications directly on the Bitcoin network. That's what programmable Bitcoin is all about. It opens up a whole world of possibilities for DeFi, that's decentralized finance, smart contracts, even new kinds of digital assets. It's like taking Bitcoin beyond just being a store of value and turning it into a platform for building new things.
Okay, so it's not just about holding Bitcoin in a wallet anymore. People can actually use it to create and interact with all kinds of new applications. Like what kind of applications?
Well, there's SBTC, which stands for Stacks Bitcoin.
Mhm.
Imagine it as a way to use your Bitcoin in those DeFi applications that are built on the Stacks network.
So with SBTC, I could use my Bitcoin to lend money, borrow money, or even trade on those decentralized exchanges. It's like opening up a whole new world for people who hold Bitcoin.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, these layer 2 solutions, like Stacks, don't clog up the main Bitcoin blockchain. Transactions stay fast, which is super important for DeFi, where speed matters a lot.
That's pretty amazing. It sounds like this programmable Bitcoin could even, challenge Ethereum, which is the big player in DeFi right now, could it?
It definitely has the potential. We're seeing some innovative projects popping up like Veer and Bitflow. They're essentially creating Bitcoin versions of those popular DeFi protocols that were on Ethereum, like Uniswap. It's early days, but things are moving fast.
It reminds me of the early internet, Back when everyone was just figuring out what they could do. Feels like we're on the edge of something big.
I think that's a great analogy. Like the internet back then, programmable Bitcoin has huge potential, and we're just starting to explore what we can do with it.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the overall crypto market. What are some of the trends that jumped out at you from those videos?
The growth of stablecoins is just incredible. They've hit a market cap of $200 billion, which is huge. It shows how useful they are and how people are using them in the real world.
It seems like they're becoming the way to go for people who want to use crypto for everyday stuff. The videos even called them the killer app of crypto. Having a stable digital version of the US dollar is a game changer, especially for folks in countries with, unstable currencies or limited access to financial services.
Absolutely, they're making finance accessible to everyone all over the world. And it's not just regular people using them anymore. We're seeing big institutions getting involved too.
What about Tether? It's still the biggest stablecoin out there, even with all the controversy.
Tether's dominance is really interesting. It shows that people really want a decentralized dollar-pegged asset that's outside the traditional banking system. People want alternatives, and Tether's providing that, even with the questions surrounding it.
So we've talked about programmable Bitcoin, the rise of stablecoins. What about other altcoins or crypto trends we should keep an eye on?
Well, those videos you sent mentioned some interesting stuff about technical analysis. If you're actively trading crypto,
I'm all ears. Tell me everything.
So Bitcoin is kind of stuck in this range right now between like $95,000 and $101,000. This kind of price action often means we're about to see a breakout, either up or down. Could be a big move.
Which way do you think it'll break? Give me the inside scoop.
If I knew that, I'd be on a beach somewhere. But there's this thing called the weekly EMA 12, which is like a moving average of the price over 12 weeks. It's around $105,000 right now, and it could act as support, preventing the price from dropping further. Or it could be resistance, stopping it from going higher. It'll be interesting to see what happens when the price gets close to that level.
Okay, that's helpful. What about altcoins? Any specific ones you're watching?
Ethereum is always one to keep an eye on. It's the second biggest crypto out there, and it's facing some resistance right now between $4,000 and $4,100. If it breaks through that, it could really take off.
Got it. Anything else?
Solana and Optimism, OP, those are known for being pretty volatile, but they're showing some interesting patterns right now, kind of like Bitcoin. If you're okay with a bit more risk, they could be worth watching.
Noted. So we've covered a lot: programmable Bitcoin, stable coins, even some technical analysis. Anything else we should remember as we, navigate this crazy crypto world?
The big takeaway here is that crypto is growing up. It's not just about speculation anymore. We're seeing real innovation and people actually using it. And more people are realizing that blockchain technology can change industries, even our daily lives.
It's not your grandpa's Bitcoin anymore, that's for sure.
Exactly. And things are changing faster and faster. If you want to stay ahead of the game, got to stay informed, keep learning, and be ready for anything. This is a world where things can flip on a dime, so being adaptable is key.
That's great advice. I'm hearing some buzz about something that could really shake things up in the next few years: quantum computing. Both videos mentioned it as a potential game changer, especially for cryptography. It sounds pretty complex, but important.
Quantum computing is definitely a fascinating field that's developing quickly. It has the potential to change a lot of industries, and cryptography is one where it could have a huge impact. But to understand why, we need to understand how traditional computers and quantum computers are different, like fundamentally different.
Okay, walk me through it. What makes quantum computing so different, and why is it such a big deal for cryptography?
So traditional computers, they use bits, which can be either a 0 or a 1. It's like a light switch that's on or off. Quantum computers, though, they use qubits, which can be 0, 1, or both at the same time.
Yeah.
This is because of something called superposition, which is one of those crazy principles of quantum mechanics.
Wait, both at the same time? How is that even possible? That's kind of blowing my mind.
It's definitely weird, right? Think of it like a coin spinning in the air. It's not heads or tails until it lands. A qubit is kind of like that spinning coin. It's both possibilities at the same time until you measure it.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So how does this superposition thing make quantum computers more powerful?
Superposition, along with another concept called entanglement, allows quantum computers to do calculations in a completely different way than traditional computers. For some problems, especially those involving complex calculations, quantum computers could be millions, even billions of times faster.
Wow, that's incredible. But how does this relate to cryptography? I'm still trying to connect the dots.
A lot of the encryption we use today relies on math problems that are really hard for regular computers to solve. These problems are basically what keep our online activity safe, like banking, email, all that stuff. But quantum computers, with their super fast calculating abilities, could eventually crack those codes much faster.
So everything we rely on for security online could be vulnerable to quantum computers. That's a little scary.
It's a valid concern. But the good news is that those really powerful, reliable quantum computers are still a ways off. We're talking years, maybe even decades. It's not like our online security is about to collapse tomorrow.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. But are people working on ways to protect us from this potential quantum threat? It sounds like we need to be ready.
Definitely. There's a whole area of research called post-quantum cryptography. It's all about creating new encryption methods that can withstand attacks from quantum computers. It's like a race against time to make our systems quantum-proof before quantum computers get powerful enough to break them.
So it's like a battle between those building quantum computers and those trying to protect us from them. Who's going to win?
It's a fascinating race, that's for sure. It's super important research, and the outcome could change the future of cybersecurity. It's a big deal.
So after all this, what's the takeaway? For someone like me trying to understand all this crazy technology and how it affects my everyday life, quantum computing, it sounds like a big deal, but maybe not right now, right?
Yeah, you got it. Quantum computing has huge potential, but it'll probably be a while before we see it used everywhere. But the main thing to remember is that technology changes Fast, like really fast. What sounds like science fiction today could be totally normal tomorrow. It's crazy.
It is a lot to take in, but it's pretty exciting too.
Totally. We're basically watching a tech revolution happening right in front of us.
Hmm.
Just got to embrace the change, be curious, and never stop learning. Those are the keys to navigating this whole thing.
Love that. I feel like this deep dive has really helped me understand what's going on in finance and technology. Any last words of wisdom for our listener?
I think the big picture here is that everything's always changing, and there's a ton of opportunity out there. We're living in a time where almost anything is possible. The key is to stay informed, keep up with what's happening, and be ready to adapt because things change quickly, right?
So true. And that wraps up another deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, knowledge is power, so keep exploring and learning about the world around you.